CI for MuleSoft project. I will be explaining what we have developed.
Hold the mic and then you just hold it in.
So from AutoRABIT side, whatever we have developed ARMule, which is for CI/CD tool for MuleSoft projects, I will be demonstrating that product also as well. So with me, Sri is also available. If you have any questions related to CI/CD, whatever the development. So primarily, my focus will be whatever the challenges you are facing when your code is completed. From that point to when it is going to deploy into live environment, whatever the problems we will be facing, that will be very useful for me as well to integrate all the pain points which developers are facing to be integrated in our Mule application as well. So we will have a separate discussion after the presentation is completed about what are the pain points you are facing over there. So here today's agenda will be.
Yeah. Next slide. Sorry.
Yeah, today's agenda will be why DevOps and MuleSoft. What means the continuous? Continuous in the sense it may be continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous testing. What is the continuous we will be having? After that, I will be demonstrating the ARMule, that is continuous delivery suite for MuleSoft applications. From there, Q&A.
Sure.
So, why we will be using DevOps? Before going to why DevOps, what is DevOps? See, whenever a developer codes something, so from there to if the code deploys into live environment, there are multiple actions take place. See, development will be going on. After that, quality assurance will be there. From there, support activities needs to be done from there. So all the things, the technology operations, whatever we are using, all comes into DevOps. So if you follow DevOps, what is the advantage of it? That is value creation, business agility, and increased velocity, governance and orders, better collaboration between the teams, continuous delivery, quicker fixes, and better ROI. These are the main advantages for following DevOps. The theory says something and the reality will be something whenever we are working in live environment. When we see the original task, whatever is there, the blue color line, which shows that original task we will be writing, and we will be writing some automation scripts on those things. So what theory says is, we can work on the original tasks over there and writing one time the automation scripts, the job will be done and we can concentrate on the original task. But when it comes to reality, so work will be going on over there and automation work also goes on there. So both need to be done in parallel. So we will be investing amount of time in automation as well as original tasks. So when we use the ARMule product, you no need to worry about the ongoing development over there. You can concentrate on the current tasks which are assigned to you. What MuleSoft gives us is better known to you other than the Cloud Hub, API-led connectivity, down to cloud communication, hybrid implementation, center for excellence, all those things, exchange, units. So when Anypoint is there, where AutoRABIT fits is in all the places. So once the development is completed, from there AutoRABIT comes into the picture. If you want to see the slides, how the workflow will be there, I will be explaining in detail about AutoRABIT, where it fits in the next slides, further slides. Before going into this, what is continuous? continuous is continuous testing. We have integrated with the commit receive hooks. Whenever a commit is made to the version control system, from there it takes the build, it deploys into the environment wherever you want to deploy it. And we, as an AutoRABIT product, we are aware of M units and J units. Once the commit is made, while building the application, we will be executing the M units and this J units over there, whatever the application consists of, and we will be publishing the results as well. So post-deploy smoke test for API, this functional test cases will be executed on the application once it is deployed to the any of the environment in the cloud hub. So what is continuous integration is, so whenever we trigger a build on there, all the builds will be maintained by AutoRABIT, that is integrated build factory management. We understand Gradle, NPM and ANT as well. So repeatable deployments for builds with dynamic property management. This property management is one of the most critical area because we will be dealing with many of the other connectors. For example, SAP connector or database, everything, right? Here, when the build is moved from one system to the other system, that means one environment to other environment. For example, if you take, we are using in the QA environment. From there, staging environment we will be moving. If you see one Salesforce org is used in the QA environment, the same Salesforce org may not be for the UAT or the live. So property management will be very difficult. In that case, AutoRABIT comes with this property management. For all this, you need to declare the different profiles over there and properties. The build will be same, but when it is moved to the cloud hub with different environments, the property will be dynamically included over there. That is the main advantage of ARMule. So continuous deployment. See, when you want to deploy it, there are only 0 click for sandbox environment deployment. If you want to deploy the same build to the different environments, just 1 click is required. And we have an audit on the means audit of all the deployments, means in which environment, which build is there, up to which commit it has been pushed. All the audit will be maintained over there. Why you need to use this ARMule? Because to achieve the faster time to market, because we think that this is time to develop. But once you are in the development, if you are not reaching into the, then it is required for the market, or it is going to be delayed. At the time, the investment what we put over there is waste, right? By using this, release velocity will be fast, so time to market will be fast. What we can do with this continuous integration, that is all the builds will be managed over here, continuous testing, continuous deployments as well. This is the simple steps. So the first step is checking that the developers does. From there, once the checking is done to the, so ARMule product will support all the flavors of it as well, DFS and SVN. Once you check in your code to the version control system, from there AutoRABIT takes place. So it takes the checkout from the repository. On the source code, it executes the test cases and it generates the build artifact. Once the build artifact is generated, it can be deployed to any of the environments in the cloud hub. So general workflow will be user commits into the version control repository. This is the developer task. From there, the AutoRABIT comes into the picture. Next. It takes the checkout from the repository, execute the test cases, that is M unit or J units, whatever the checkout repository consists with. It then generates the build and build artifact will be generated. From there, you need to deploy it. When you are deploying it, the build artifact will be same. It can be deployed to sandbox, QA environment, or UAT or prod. Where you are deploying, depending upon that, the properties will be captured from property management and it will be deployed to the different environments. Only there are 4 easy steps to use ARMule. One, you need to register with your Anypoint credentials, that is MuleSoft account. The second one is repository, where your source consists of. And third thing is set up your profiles, that is property management. And fourth, create your project. You are done with your work from ARMule side. I will demonstrate the product, how it looks like as well. So this is the login screen. This is the place where you can register your repositories, how many repositories you are maintaining with your organization. You can deposit all those things, and you can register the branches as well. And if you want to create any branch from AutoRABIT as well, you can create from here as well, or already registered branch is there in your repository, you can register over here. The second thing is you need to register with your Anypoint account. So from there we will be pulling all the data, what is the account you have, what are the connectors you have, what are the sandbox workers, production workers, all those things information will be shown over here. Once this is done, this is the profiles, that is properties management, what we are talking. You need to create each profile type over there. For example, if you see over there, you have a Salesforce profile, you have SAP profile. See, when it varies from one connector to the different connectors, the properties keys will be different, right? For example, for Salesforce profile, you will be having the URL, and you are having the username, password, and security token. If you go to the DB related thing, you will be having connection string, username, and password. The keys may be varying for different profiles. Here, the profile in the sense here will be a different connector, we can say. Once you register with once you add your profile, from there, for each profile, you will be creating a single profile. That is, for example, if you take the scenario of SAP, for SAP, you will be maintaining 10 machines or 20 machines. All the machine details, all the keys you need to maintain over here. Once you are done with, you need to create a simple job over here with all the configurations. The product name, that is project name, and you have a repository. From print with branch, you need to take the source checkout, and you can select the build of type, is it is a Maven or a build. Any build we will support over here. You will select that one. The build on commit option is there. What is this option is, whenever you commit something to the version control system, instantly this project will be triggered. No need of any manual intervention over there. It takes the repository checkout, all those things flows same way. Deploy. Once you deploy, what kind of a deployment you need to select? Is it Anypoint deployment or hybrid deployment, whatever deployment? Once it is done, you will need to give the domain name and what is the environment where you want to develop, what is the worker you want to give, and the properties. For this deployment, which environment it goes, depending upon that environment, what are the connectors you will be using, all those profiles you need to select over here. If your application has 20 to 30 connectors, then you need to give 20 to 30 profiles over here. Once this configuration is set up, your job will be done. And this is the builds. Each time whenever you click on build, all the build related information is shown in single view. This is the log, what for every build, what are the steps it has been executed. This is the MUnit status report. How many MUnit test cases has been written in that one, how many runs, skipped, or total failed, passed. Once it is done, if you have any builds ready, so we can say one build is certified by QA team. So that build we need to move to the UL environment or another environment. You can come into this screen, select the project, what is the build number, what is the same, whatever the properties you want to develop and which environment you want to deploy it. On a single click, it will be deployed to the higher versions as well. Wherever what is deployed, where deployed, all the information will be available in a single view. This is the deployment list. how many deployments occur, all those things.
So it seems like you guys build a completely new tool by using the APIs that are available in the cloud or source environment.
Yes.
So I mean, it's not a contradictory question. Like we already have a CI/CD tool like a chain. So what is the extra features that are being given by AutoRABIT? So suppose if I am a customer, so why do you think about AutoRABIT?
Yes. Jenkins is typically, not just typically, Jenkins is created as a tool for Maven build management. There are scripts you can always write. Even without Jenkins, you could always write a curl script for calling any API. Why do you need MuleSoft to call a Salesforce API? You don't need MuleSoft. You could be using curl scripts, you could be using Bash. It's the whole enterprise feature set that what the changes that you make, your colleagues should be able to see that. How do you manage your logs? How do you have a consistency across the team that will give you a auditable feature set? What changed when? Those are the primary reasons why APIs are always there. It's a tool set that you build above the APIs is what giving you an ROI from that perspective. So if you go to Studio, right in the very first menu, it says deploy to Cloud Hub. You don't need Jenkins. You don't need ARMule. You don't need any tool because right from within the Studio, you can deploy to Cloud Hub. All you need is a Cloud Hub user ID and password. You need it anyway here. You need that for Jenkins. Any tool you use, any script you use, you need a user ID and password to go to Cloud Hub. Same thing you can achieve from your Studio. Why and why not? Did you deploy to Cloud Hub from Studio? Yes. Incidentally, all of us have done it at least once or twice. And then we got slapped by the management not to do that because they don't know what was deployed to production. They don't know what was deployed to any environment. Any experiences on that? How many of you got slapped on the head?
Developers, yes, I agree.
Yeah. So in order for the management and in order for yourself to have a auditable track about what you developed, what your tester tested, and what moved to the production. That's where a tool set is required. Any tool set does not matter. You need a firm tool set. Now, Anypoint Cloud Hub APIs are not direct APIs where you just call one API and then it's deployed. It's a series of APIs that you need to call in order to really make that deployment. If you're writing Jenkins, I can always write a script. It's never a problem. It's the maintenance of it. How many scripts do you have to write? All of that is included in here. When we say it's aware of MUnit, it's aware of the JUnits. So all of the reporting is built in. You give the repository, this is purpose built for MuleSoft. So as soon as you give a repository, it checks in there if there are MUnit tests. Yes, run it. No, just ignore it. If there are JUnit tests, it will run it. And you can also include a code coverage in there. If your MUnit says 65% code coverage, you can set threshold in there. If it did meet, don't build, don't go to production. Your test is a failure there. So you could do all of that here. And then apart from that, one other best practice scenario that most of us fail when we do not have a tool set is we build the project again and again every time we are migrating to a new system, a new landscape. The reasons multiple. We associate our properties files inside the system and we check into the Git. Everybody says, no, don't do that. So we move the properties file outside. We still need it inside because we need to bundle that up. That's when the manual builds up comes up. Every time I want to deploy this to QA, rebuild it. Now, other than the QA, and that's not the major problem comes up when your landscapes of your target systems do not match your Mule landscape. Your databases, you typically have a dev environment, a QA environment, a production environment. SAP, typically you have 15 environments. It's very common. Salesforce, very common to have more than 15 environments. Every developer has their own environment. and you have an integration environment, and you have another integration environment for another project, and you have production ops. So every time you're migrating between these, you have 3 database instances, you have 15 Salesforce instances, you have 15 SAP instances. Now, you're testing for a particular project. You did the modifications in your Mule application, you're testing for a particular project, and then the project manager comes up and says, use my DB instance 2, Salesforce instance 15, SAP instance 13. Now you got to make the combination of a properties file. Otherwise, you cannot mix all of these two into one Mule application. Sometimes what we do is we have three separate properties file for each of them: database, Salesforce, and SAP. Now the administrator comes and says, use Salesforce instance number 13. Now you got to go back and modify that particular properties file. So that's where the dynamic properties are coming in here, where you're going to create your properties separately outside of your Mule application. Nothing in relation with Mule application. At the time of deployment, the reason is we want the same build to be moved across environments. What you tested in dev, same build. When I say same build, the zip file, the jar file, the var file, whatever you built in there, nobody is going to touch it. Nobody is going to open that. The moment you open a jar file, inject a properties file in there, the sanctity of your build has been lost. Now, you could have added another class file in there. You could have added another XML file in there. You are losing the audit track in there. That's why it's very, very critical to do one build, whether it's a sandbox build, dev build, whatever it is, does not matter to me. You do one build, exactly the same jar file, untouched, unopened, is going to be moved across environments. You're going to supply the parameters from outside of that. The parameters are the only ones that define what downstream systems are you connecting to from MuleSoft, right? So those are the primary best practice guidelines from a DevOps scenario. Yes.
How do we, are we using saving them on the file system, or how exactly we are
You can manage any way in your general projects. AutoRABIT has built a tool where you maintain that within this tool. So that's what I'm saying. There are best practices and there's an implementation. So I'm talking about best practices right now. If you want to use this, I'm more than happy. If you don't want to use this, I still want you to be successful in there. That's the reason why it's more about best practice scenarios. DevOps, best practice. How are you going to be successful in your implementations? So properties files, you move them outside of your jar files, number one. Properties files, we typically merge this, my database 2, Salesforce 15, and SAP 13. We have that set of properties in one properties file, say dev. We have another combination of that, we say QA properties. We have another properties, and the combination of this, we say prod.properties file. Okay? So we are approximating saying, my MuleSoft has 3 environments, dev, QA, and prod. DB has 3 environments, dev, QA, and prod. Perfect. Now, Salesforce has 15 environments. Now, which of them is dev, which of them is QA, which of them is prod? They change. Every implementation you do, every testing cycle you do, they change. Your test cycle 1, they say, please use my XOR because I just refreshed it from production. Next test cycle, they say, use a different OR. So every time you are testing, you need to come up with a new properties file now. Now, how do you manually manage these properties files? Which combination of your target systems are in a particular properties file? You need to keep track of those. One thing. Another thing. Your development is fast progressing every single day. You have a commit. Every single day you have a build. Which of this build went to QA? Was it the build this morning at 9 a.m.? Or was it the build yesterday that you triggered off yesterday at 10 p.m.? Which of this build jar files went to QA? The problem is when you do it with Maven, all of them you come with the same file name, your application.snapshot.001.jar. Every one of your Maven comes up with the same name. So now you have to manage an Excel spreadsheet somewhere saying that, hey, in my folder, I have a timestamp. At this timestamp, I have a jar file. That jar file is the one that got moved to QA by my team. Because when you go to QA, you look for the jar file, it has the same name, your app_name.jar. You look at it today, you look at it tomorrow, you look at it 1 month from now, it's the exact same file name. If it's the same file name now, how do you know which of the jar file really went there? So you manage that in a spreadsheet somewhere else. Now, which one was tested by the QA engineer that approved it saying, this is all perfect, I approve this to go to production. By looking at that mail, your deployment manager or release manager or your manager approves it saying, hey, fine, the testing went well, they're going production. Now the question comes up, which jar file was this? Yes, Artifactory version will give you. Now Artifactory version and the Mule deployment, how are they related? Artifactory version is your Excel list I'm talking about. You have an Excel list which says all of your deployments, all of your builds are in your Artifactory. You go in Artifactory, you have a list of 100 jar files built. Which of that 100 jar files was moved to your QA instance 1? Which of the jar files is in QA instance 2? Which of that is now approved by the QA and your manager approved to go production? Right? Build management is there. Every one of these is an independent tool in general. You have Artifactory that manages your artifacts, that manages your builds. You have Jenkins that runs the Mavens and builds these artifacts, pushes it to Artifactory. And then you have somebody manually going to Cloud Hub, uploading this file, the jar file in there, that gets deployed, whether to on-prem, hybrid, or Cloud Hub, whatever it is, it gets deployed in there. That's a manual step. If not a manual step, you write scripts to do that by pulling this Artifactory file and then loading it in there.
Just to add what you said, in one of the projects, what they have done is like dev environment, right? So for dev environment, they have it in everything in Jenkins, they have scripts. They used to, suppose a build is ready, right? They prepare the build and they keep at a particular location for dev.
Yes.
When you want to move from dev to QA, again, one step is like from moving that folder to the next folder where QA environment deployment will be taking place.
Yes.
From there, I have to load. It becomes like sequential, right?
Yes.
That is not available in dev location, it's not deployed in QA and not moving forward.
Yes. Perfect. Now let's say I have this QA testing happening continuously every day. There was a QA testing happening yesterday with yesterday's build. There's another QA testing happened today with today's build. You have one QA environment, so your QA folder is replaced by whatever is the current happening in there. Yesterday's one was the one that your manager said approved to go to production. Now your QA folder has today's build because that's the active testing that's happening today. Now where did your yesterday's build file go? That's the one that was tested, approved. Artifactory. Yes. Which of the 100 build files was that?
We will have the unique number.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, minor or major version.
Every one of them has it. That's what we are trying to say is you have that minor, major, whatever in there. Now you need to maintain that in a spreadsheet somewhere saying which of them was tested yesterday. Because you could be having multiple tests running yesterday, not one. The reason why you are going to continuous integration, continuous build, continuous deployment is for the check-in to deployment. You need to reduce that time. That's the biggest key indicator of a developer productivity, of time not lost in between. Let's say let's say you buy a 15 lakhs car today. Are you going to park in your garage for the next 1 year and then start using it in the next 1 year because your EMI starts building up every day? Or are you going to start using it next day because you already purchased it? Now you need to realize the value of it. Same thing, you did your development, you did your commit. Developer is done with the commit. Now, do you want to sit on that commit for the next 1 year before it goes to production? How early can you go to production on your commit? The time between the commit and the production is the efficiency of your DevOps processes. Time between your ticket and your commit is the efficiency of the developer. Once the commit happened, it will go to production. How long did it take to go to production? That's where the job of the DevOps engineer is. How long did it take? You got to move it fast. When you got to move it fast, you need tools. That's the message. This is a tool in progression. We are going to release it very soon. GA from that perspective, it's available in a pilot mode right now. So scripting will be available into the future. Yes, it's a part of it.
API processing and for example, move our API from the dev to QA, it automatically import the API from the SL to the QA environment. It apply the same policy.
Yeah, again the same thing. That's a roadmap item. Currently, it's the artifacts that are being deployed through this. The API management, policy management, and then when you are upgrading your APIs, now you link all of your new projects to that API version. Those are all on our future roadmap. But primarily, again, as I'm saying, it's more of best practices now. If you have questions on there, yes, we can talk. I mean, this is a meetup group. This is not a sales. Yeah. It's not a sales pitch. Yeah. So best practices.
One question is, you have shown on one screen that you are doing the capacity sizing. Because I go to platform and I can change that how many workers I need.
Yes.
Do we have that sort of package directly here? Or?
Yes. When you are doing a deployment, that's where you are able to pick whether you want to run it on a micro instance or a 2x instance or a 4x instance. It's a deployment time instance. You don't need that at the build time. No, it's the environment.
Cloud Hub or AWS.
Yeah, it's the environment. When you create your environments inside of your Cloud Hub, that's where you are deciding which zone does it go to, or you don't go inside that. Your business org. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you're setting up your Cloud Hub, when you're setting up your business orgs, when you're setting up your environments, is when you're choosing all of that. We are not managing Cloud Hub. We are managing deployments only, not the Cloud Hub instance. Yes.
The property when you override it, so it's required to redeploy or using this AutoRABIT?
Properties overriding always needs to be redeployed. There's no option in there to pick it up without redeployment.
You're already providing the Cloud Hub override the properties and redeploy. So why use this?
Exact same thing. Again, do you want to type in your passwords? Do you want to type in your 15 different properties files on the Cloud Hub? Or do you want to pick and choose different profiles saying my SAP QA, my DB 15, my Salesforce 13 in there? It's just the ease of approach in there. It's a wrapper on top of that, exactly. Because what we do inside here is actually build that file dynamically, load it to Cloud Hub.
Yeah, because you have providing that mule.env, what are the variables we have passed?
Yes.
That property.
Yes. When you use mule.env, the problem with that, as I mentioned earlier, was you have 3 instances of MuleSoft, Dev, QA, and Prod. Your target instances are not 3. Your target instances are 15. You have Salesforce 15 orgs in there. Which of those 15 orgs was your QA or dev? And it keeps changing on a daily basis. So when you say Mule environment is QA, your QA.properties file picks up.
I will create a 15 property files in that mule.env equals to QA2.
Exactly. Exactly. Now comes a combination of them. You have 15 Salesforce, you have 15 SAPs. And the combination is 225 files. You want to send Salesforce 1 to SAP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a permutations and combinations of all of your target instances that your Mule system uses. Yes, it's a process. I mean, none of this is not, we can do without any of these tools. Cloud provides easy way for you to deploy manually. Studio provides an easy way for you to deploy from within the application. There are properties files that you can manage, single properties file, or you can manage dev.properties, QA.properties, prod.properties, or 15 different properties files. Or you don't even manage any of those, you go into Cloud and then type them in manually. So there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. Now we pick something that's going to be productive for us as a team, not individual. Individual productivity is totally different. Individual productivity, if I'm a fast typer, I'm better off typing it. It's a team productivity. What you type, can somebody else also do that when you're not there? What you know in your head, can somebody else do that when you're not there? Is there something that's standardized that you can write on a document, give it to a new guy that you just hired to do DevOps and say, hey, go on, deploy my next project on. Standardizations, nothing should be in your memory because you might not be there tomorrow, you might be on your vacation. You don't want to be disturbed on your vacation, right? You probably go to, as a Goa, you're sitting on the beach there, and the manager is struggling here. Hey, I can't deploy this without you on site. He calls you and says, take the next flight and then I want you to be here. Otherwise your job is at stake. You don't want that call from the manager ever. Anything else? So DevOps is one we are doing here, but my experience spans like very wide in there. I come from like any integration backgrounds. I've done integrations exclusively for the last 25 years.
It's more like enterprise level thing, right? When you have so many different apps of Salesforce, SAP, and all those things, then you are doing a lot of orchestration in those projects.
Yes. It's primarily about team productivity. When you have a team, how do you make sure that what's standardized, that there's a process in place that your colleagues can use when you are not available, or you can use in your sleep that you don't really need to recall what else, what was the password that somebody told you yesterday. If you write it down, your security guys will come to you and they say, don't write your passwords down. This is a cloud-based system. Yes, please work with Pawan. You can go out there.
Where you are storing all the artifacts?
All the artifacts are stored on S3, right? S3 or AWS. Yeah, we particularly opted for not going to use like Artifact or anything. We built it on our own. Not just for MuleSoft. AutoRABIT as a company is actually one of the leading DevOps tool management for Salesforce. Our primary experience as AutoRABIT comes from DevOps background for Salesforce. Salesforce is much more complex beast than MuleSoft. MuleSoft, you have artifacts, but Salesforce, there are 100 different objects. Those are pulled and pushed multiple ways. So that's our primary product as a company, AutoRABIT. We are DevOps for Salesforce, backup management for Salesforce. And now this is DevOps for MuleSoft. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Please.
Why is it very important, right? So, so senior guys here, they go with the client priority, they will client itself.
Yeah.
So when they get that, they will, they can.
I totally understand that, and yes, please work with us. Either Alim or Pawan will be in Hyderabad. I'll be traveling, and every time I'm here, I'll definitely be available here. But even otherwise, you can always reach out. Yes, obviously, it has to be done to go to the APIs. Our app is totally built on Java. Our primary app across AutoRABIT is built on. I mean, Cloud Hub gives their APIs, so we do leverage their APIs. It's no secret that, I mean, there's no secret sauce that we built on top of on that.
The internal Cloud Hub APIs are all GraphQL.
Yes. Yeah. I thought we had a lot more questions here.
On Cloud Hub side, like people, whatever you are saying, Sri, right, it's more towards bigger clients who are working on different apps.
If it's Cloud Hub, if it's a hybrid, then that's where some of the smaller clients are coming in. Because you're on an on-prem system, you're able to deploy applications much more densely. So on one vCode license, I think somebody was asking earlier, vCode license on a Cloud Hub is expensive than the local system. It's primarily related to a vCode can be shared when it's global. A vCode on the Cloud Hub cannot be shared by, I mean, it's shared by 10, but I don't really call it sharing. I call it really slicing it. It's like 1/10 slice. So your 9 apps can be 1/10 slice, and then your one app that it goes major. Now let's say if you have that combination of, say, 9 really tiny apps and one major app. Now how are you going to deploy on one vCode on Cloud Hub? You cannot. But if you go for on-prem, you can deploy 100 minor apps and one major app. Your app will survive. Your instance will survive. So it's a density that matters between the density of apps that go on the Cloud Hub versus on-prem. So some of the anti-patterns that everybody says, don't mix your APIs, people use that. I personally have also recommended to a lot of clients is mix your APIs to make a larger app when you're deploying to Cloud Hub if such situation occurs where you have really tiny apps and you're not using your capacity utilization. When it's an anti-pattern, MuleSoft would kill me if you tell them that I told you. So
now we have done in the project where we limited the number of projects from 12 to 5.
Yes.
And then we have merged like all the runtime scenarios. We are communicating with Salesforce side.
Yeah.
And we have separated all the batch work. So batch is heavy.
Right.
So means vCode side we are given more, and who are the runtime we are given more threads.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a pattern, and I mean the advantage of MuleSoft over many other applications. I think that question came up many times when you were talking earlier. Is the flexibility that the developer has in being able to control, manage your particular applications and the connectivity, how it goes into the multiple systems. I worked on everything, as I said. When you're working with SAP, I need 15 gigabytes of memory just to run my first application. If I want to deploy a second instance of it, SAP comes back and says, pay me $1 million more. It's every instance is $1 million in there. So the micro apps, as everybody is pushing towards, this is the platform, the MuleSoft is the platform that you're building to get to a stage of micro apps where if you are able to actually run it on Dockers, I can go with 100 Dockers on a decent size machine. I can go with 100 Dockers, and each Docker could be your 1 or 2 apps that can go inside there. And you can go with any combination. There are hundreds of combinations of how you can deploy a MuleSoft application. I mean, that's the power of it. And I was sold on this in 2010, working on an open source project, and then I stuck to that. So I heard a lot of you, I guess some of you have just started or venturing into this. right? I would say this is one platform that you can stick for a really long time and make a very good career out of it.
We are already making like this.
Yes, we are making already. Yes. What was that? Non-Maven projects. You can deploy, I mean, Mule application typically, whatever Maven does is practically verifying that your syntax integrity, your XMLs, all of that is in place and it is running MUnit. Non-Maven projects, you don't have any tools to be able to do that. You can obviously just zip them up and then send it to CloudHub. CloudHub will happily accept that. Yeah, but anti-pattern, I would strongly discourage not. I mean, you got to use Maven, and that's one thing I would say it's not an option. I mean, MuleSoft provides you that. And MuleSoft provides you some of the tools, but I say it's not an option.
Even in Mule 4, they have removed now, so everything will be now.
Okay. Okay. And yeah, I mean, Mule 3 is here to stay. I mean, it's not going away tomorrow. It will stay for a little more time, and people will still be developing in there. That's also one of the reasons. I mean, Maven, it's a pain in the butt for the first time. Once you start using it, it's as simple as 2 clicks. I mean, nothing more to do after that. I mean, every time you drop a new connector, it auto-builds. The Mule Studio has a built-in Maven components in there. So you don't really manually have to, it's extremely rare that you have to do manually touch a form. And when that happens, I'm not an expert at form, I reach out to Pawan and say, hey, Pawan, can you please fix my form? So there's always going to be one colleague in your team that knows form, and he can help you out in that particular instance, right?
Means in our scenarios, whatever components maximum you can use in the flow, right? So we make one form as a red form, working fine. Any problem anybody facing, take that form, put it in working fine for everyone.
So I mean, it's very simple. I mean, using Maven is very, very simple. And I mean, it's going to give you a lot more tools available to you than the risk that you're taking of not using. Anything else? So what are you using currently? Okay, just a feedback for me. What are you using at your client places about CI/CD? Okay. Right. Ali?
Thanks a lot, Sri and Pawan. Only one thing is pending from Pawan's side is like we get those credentials to use, at least feel like what the tool is all about. I personally will use it because I just want to figure out, means in normal projects, whatever we are thinking right now, whatever your experience is, you will not be seeing the use right now, but for the larger enterprise level, when you have 10 to 15 teams, like for the clients, Bank of America and HSBCs, here you have multiple teams working on different environments and different testing is going on. In those scenarios, like very helpful, very important tool for us, I think. And in DevOps also you have expanded, right? DevOps side. So on the DevOps side also they have a good thing. Thanks a lot, Sri, for help on that. Next 5 minutes, actually, what we are going to discuss more on about it is like what next meetup should be. So mainly everybody is coming with Mule 4, right? Mule 4 migration. I already had a discussion means in the MuleSoft Summit, and all these guys, I told Vijay as well, they are saying like till April or March or April, they are not coming up with that tool which is like used by us completely for the clients. And personally, my feeling, what she already said, right, Mule 3 is not going anywhere soon. Because a lot of clients right now also hesitant on Mule 4, And MuleSoft also admits that they have not achieved that sort of comfortness which they had with Mule 3. So it's gonna be there for next at least 1 and 2 years. I feel minimum 2 years it will be there, minimum 2 years. And once they come up with the tool with a GA version, still I'm telling they also agreed in the summit, the Salesforce summit, that any project which is having like more heavy on the transformation side, less on the orchestration, that particular tool will not work 100%. So they are thinking that tool as where you have straightforward things. For example, I'm telling you, you have in data week, if you are doing the mappings, you have like 1 level, 2 level, and then 3 and 4 level. So once you go to like 3rd level and 4th level mapping, it becomes like complex scenario. So all these scenarios in the data wave will not be directly transferable by that tool. So what they are saying, first level instances, you are doing okay. From employee, you have ID, okay, you are taking that ID and putting into that employee ID, it's fine. But if you are going from the employee inside the ID, you have other things, it will not be that much helpful. That's the one thing. Second thing, they are focusing more from the MEL perspective. So you write MEL, for example, if you take current date timestamp, right, you write server.datetime and the values or the format. So these sort of things, they are trying to migrate it directly. You don't have to write all those things again when you're using that migration tool. But there are multiple examples, but whatever things are complex, they don't have the exact answers right now. And their teams are struggling day and night on that, how to do that. Right? So just stick with Mule 3. If your clients are putting pressure, put some time, give the time frame like April to May. Even I do RFPs, a lot of people ask me like when you are migrating to Mule 4. But the clients who are mature in MuleSoft, they are very much peaceful right now with Mule 3. They know that it is going to be there, whatever they say. So means my promise to you would be that next meetup, I'm going to bring one more guy from MuleSoft who is solution architect. He has agreed, I think, lately 2-3 days back. But MuleSoft is expanding, right? So they have like 1 or 2 solution architects now in Bangalore. So that guy has said like, I will be joining the Hyderabad Meetup, and that's good news. And I will ask him to come prepared for that Mule 4 answer. Okay? So that's what I can give you assurance for now. Any other requirement you feel that you could put in the Mule Meetup, apart from Mule 4? Okay. One thing on that suggestion I would have, they have launched multiple courses this time. And I think once I log in, I go back to home and do my meetup completion. It will, tomorrow I will do that. There they are giving one voucher for the certificate, for the examinations. Right? There is one course, they are calling it Delta. Whoever is having like Mule 3 to Mule 4, I would suggest everyone should log into the training portal and go through that course one, because that is a comprehensive list of the items which has been changed from Mule 3 to Mule 4. And once you go through that, you should practice also. Take out the new studio and start doing the practice and see like what is the difference. For example, like your error on propagate and on continue. So if you understand like why they have done this, they have now try catch block also. So for a guy who is coming new and for a guy who has a background of Java, this Mule 4 becomes very easy. So I would suggest that course for everyone. Just try your hands there and try to do the examples. That will be helpful. In the meantime, what Venkatesh has suggested, we will try to take up. I personally feel I will bring him that guy with the Mule 4 things. If he is not ready, if he is busy in something in Feb, I think someone of us can take up that Mule 3 to Mule 4. If I have the time, I will take it. Okay. Anything else, guys? Nothing. So Ali,
we have swags, a few swags to distribute. So I will leave it to your discussion how you want to do it. Most participative members are people who sign up.
How many pieces we have?
We have about 20 to 30 or so.
30 or so. How many people we have? More than that?
Yeah.
Okay, before I do that, I accept my mistake. Like I have requested for swags also. Last time also when I did the meetup, we had the t-shirt. I think the first meetup whoever attended, they might be knowing it. But this time there was a goof up because those guys celebration mode till 15th of January. So US guys were on celebration mode. They ordered the swag but on some different address, I guess. So in the morning I was running from post to pay for that swag. I didn't get it. Sorry for that. But the next meetup I will have the swags also. This swag I think we should do.
Usually at Salesforce meetups, the way we do it is because it's not enough for everyone. We give it out to the most participative audience. And
for me, I think everyone is there. So I would say like we will leave up some guys. Okay, don't take it like that. We give it to some guys to alternate.
So people who've been at the past meetup, if they want to skip, that's fine.
That's what I said.
So we'll start with the new one.
Yes, all the guys who are the first meetup here, I want them to take up.
Raise your hands.
Yeah, first meetup for you. Okay, don't mind all the other meetup guys. They have got anything.
It's a
very too much. Yeah. Don't worry. I'm telling you. That's what. These are a newcomer for us. For others, they have already got something, but definitely next time I will manage that. But nobody is going empty-handed, right? Everybody is having a voucher. So I think you have given your email ID to, right? Yeah, you will get a voucher. Yes. So I will follow that with Mariana and Sabrina, who are the meetup organizers. So I will follow up with them, and definitely they will give. They are giving to, I think, there's another meetup happening today itself in Toronto, I guess. So they have agreed to give them the vouchers. They have agreed to me also. Only thing is I have to complete some formalities. Okay? So it will take tomorrow's time, and then you might get within 10 days your voucher from your mailbox. 10 to 15 days. Yeah, 10 to 15 days. They take and they give the vouchers. Once you go to the exam, whatever exam you want to take, if they give voucher for this exam, suppose Mule 3 to Mule 4 Delta exam, so you have to reimburse, log in, and then you have to give that voucher. That exam will be free. You should get.
So that's for only Delta.
No, that exam they have not defined right now, but they are more oriented towards people to do that course. So that's why they are giving those free vouchers. They want people to get certified on that Delta part, because the problem is not with the guy who is learning before. Definitely there is no problem. Those guys are learning very fast. Problem with the guys who are in Mule 3 like us. And for us it becomes a problem because so the problem becomes there that how to migrate, and thinking process should be. Champion portal? Okay, that's a strategic decision they had, right? Every, you will see, will give more light because it's a veteran in MuleSoft. But you will take any example of all these new trends in the market. First 1 or 2 years, they attract people to that particular technology. And how they do that? They do by these means. Means I got iPad like 3.5 years back when I was in Vishwa. Because you reach a particular point, you can reimburse those points. And I used to take exam vouchers and iPads, and a lot of people have taken PS4 as well in my friend list. So I know people who have like earned a lot from those champion portals. Once they reach to a particular popularity, they will close down. That's a normal process for every. They told like it's only that nothing else is going to get it. Yeah, that's how it is. That's how they do it. Serious strategic reason.
I would say, learning from the examples of what Salesforce has done in other companies. That's where I'm coming from. It's not necessarily they're doing MuleSoft, but what they did with them was they migrated them to the Salesforce Communities program, and then Salesforce Ambassador program, Salesforce community programs, and the Salesforce the batches, all of that. So that's what Salesforce has transformed most of the other acquisitions. So going with the trend, I would expect MuleSoft also to be following that. It has it, but has it at that level, the e-com level different from having at Salesforce. Salesforce is obviously much bigger company from the past. And not just bigger, they have traditionally been very successful. That's more important. And within the Salesforce community, if you really see the value of a certification, I haven't seen it in any other community like that. If you have a certification in Salesforce, it has value. I have certifications in IBM WebSphere. Nobody ever cared for that. Nobody will look at next one.
No, they are becoming smarter, right? So, yeah. So I think Vishwas guy is there very soon. I think Mindtree also, they have like Mindtree and Vishwas, they have advertised on their website that we have cleared those many exams in single day with that many percentage rate. Like we know means there were many problems in the starting of the times, but still there are a few exams which are really good. Once you take this and once you do that, it's very confidence boosting for yourself.
And just to add to that, the more tougher the exam becomes, the more value that exam comes from this. So better be prepared before going.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you an example, right?
What is the experience? That's what they have tested. Because you got value.
They have one exam. I don't know whether now they have called it intention professional. In our days, it used to be MCD, right? So that exam was really making a sense until and unless you have a 2 years of development experience, which you have done by your own hands, then only you can clear the examination. Right? Before that, you can't do that. Even the solution design, I don't know what is the pattern right now. Earlier, even if you have not done, especially the VPC, tunneling, and all these things by yourself, you have not thought about the data load balancers, you have not thought about the business groups, VPCs, you can't clear that exam.
Not more funny was like a lot of people, you know, like, who has undergone the fundamentals, right? Even they used to complete ARMule certification very easy. As it is an open book exam, they just used to copy paste it in the Google. On the next 2 days, they used to get the answer. So that is how, I mean, a lot of people were able to complete. I'm saying